Throughout the years, women have struggled with equal rights. In the 1970s, it came to a point where they fell upon the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA for short. Within this potential amendment, it states that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. In other words, the law would potentially provide federal judges with the ability to interpret the specifics of the word sex and whether or not a law denies equality due to the lack of clarification within the Constitution. From the start of the suffrage movement, women have worked to obtain the same rights as men. The whole conflict of equal rights arose because women realized that they deserved these rights that their founding fathers promised them. Although the ratification of the ERA is an ongoing conflict throughout history, many compromises have been made and promises have been fulfilled by the passing of various laws in support of what the ERA stands for. So even though there are still injustices that need to be righted, in our opinion, the ERA no longer needs to be ratified. Women during the early stages of the ERA felt that they deserved more than just the right to vote. For instance, they believed that they deserved equal pay and equal opportunity in society, so they went out and grasped it. Thus, in today's general public, the ERA is not as important of a factor as it was previously, due to the advancement of women's societal roles and governmental laws.
In the past, the ERA was more of a gateway to future equalization rather than just the passing of a new law. Through conventions, rallies, and presentations, women of all backgrounds came together to fight for their rights. Such women who were in support of the amendment maintained influential positions within our government. For example, the Organization of Federally Employed Women, FEW for short, contained members of all women employed by the federal government who supported and strived for equality between genders and trained women to make a difference in their towns, cities, and societies. Additionally, many local women sent their support to those who fought for their rights or took matters into their own hands, while some wrote letters to senators like Kelly Smith, who wrote a letter to Governor Graham of Florida in 1982, thanking him for his support and showing just how big of an influence the support he was giving these women made and how it was impacting their campaign and bettering their chances of compromising. Others started marches or clubs in their towns, such as a march took place in May of 1976 in Springfield, Illinois, where over 16,000 women came together to urge the legislature into ratifying the amendment. In another instance, in August of 1977, the ERA Walkathon was held, overall raising $1.7 million for the campaign. Furthermore, many of these marches were known as the second wave of feminists because they were the second uprising of women demanding their freedom, while the first wave was obtaining their right to vote.
Although these marches or rallies were nothing new, women's rights conventions were regularly held from the mid-1800s to the start of the Civil War. One example is the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, which was the first ever women's rights convention held in the US. This convention jump-started women's want for their rights, causing a lengthy conflict between women and their society. That convention led to years of women petitioning and compromising for what they believe and they deserve.
Do you think that that would make any difference today? Do you think that's still a good idea?
Yes, I think it's a fine idea. Not that we haven't come almost as far as we would with the ERA by the court's interpretation of the 14th Amendment. But still, if you are trying to decide cases the way the framers would have decided them, if you ask anyone who was in Congress at the time the 14th Amendment was sent to the state, does this mean that women will be citizens of equal stature to men? The answer would be, of course not. Many states still didn't have married women's property acts. So women who married couldn't sue or be sued in their own name, they couldn't contract in their own name, couldn't hold property in their own name. The 14th Amendment wasn't meant to change any of that.
These women knew that they had a great battle ahead of them, but they were determined to persevere until they attained the liberty they sought for and received equality to the men in their lives.
Rights Amendment is a relic of the bra-burning days of the 1970s. It's unnecessary, but worse than that, it would end up being harmful to women, taking away protections that women currently have. It would not allow for any distinction to be made between men and women.
Although the years of fighting for the ERA have been many, and it is still going through the ratification process, there are endless advancements that women have achieved in their fight for equalization. It's not quite perfect yet, but we as women are living a much more lavish life than we were a century ago. Women now are not defined by a man. Even when married, they have their own property rights. Even with a husband, they have legal power and responsibility over themselves. Unlike the past, when a couple gets divorced, no longer are the men favored for custody. Instead, both genders are looked at equally and in the best interest of the situation at hand. In the workplace, women have the right to go and get jobs. Women are more than the homemakers and maids that they used to be. Now, there still is the very interesting and often controversial issue of the wage gap between men and women. In the past, that was an acceptable part of life. But now, in the 21st century, it is no longer endured. This is a rising issue that is being worked on and is immensely better, but is still not perfect.
Many influential women fighting for equal rights are in the forefront of today's society. Additionally, the amount of women in leadership roles is on the rise. Specifically, over 30 of the Fortune 500 companies have CEOs that are women. This revolution is booming and will only continue to. It follows then that it's now possible for women to enter fields of study such as medicine or law, and women are widely taking over these professions. Along with this new possibility, there are an abundance of support groups and activities that empower and promote equality to the next generation of girls. As an illustration, the Girl Scouts of America is a huge proponent of preparing girls to be whatever they decide to be, while having equalization but separation from the boys. In fact, there are multiple girls supporting teams, as well as co-ed teams, that empower girls to maintain a healthy lifestyle and to stand up for what they believe, while soaking up tough competition. Consequently, these types of organizations all have the same background of the ERA and crave the same things: equality between the man and the woman.
Take into consideration the various newly passed laws that have met many of the promises made by the ERA. They emphasize where women started, in dire need of equality, the ERA promised, and where we are today, finally redeeming every freedom they desired. Through the procurement of these promises, people have become aware of the full story of women's journey to equality, for the same rights that have been given easily to men. In conclusion, despite some injustices that still need to be righted, in our opinion, the ERA no longer needs to be ratified because of the freedom and equality women have secured within our society from the oppressive restrictions imposed by the government in the past on the way of life, behaviors, and views.